Hello and welcome to this edition of Crossover. I'm Ji Xiaojun with Alice and Dominic.
Hello, great to be here.
And Alice is back for the second time. Last time you were here, we talked about
international marriages.
Basically, it was based on your personal experience.
Yes, that's right.
Right, and this day we're going to continue. It's meant to be a sequel to that one.
Is that right?
No, it's not. Today we're talking about a new dating pattern, and basically for all these young Chinese people living and working in other countries, but there seems to be a new trend, and these people are now coming back to China to try to find their Miss Rights and Mr. Right.
Yes, that's right.
Let's just take a look at some short video clip of that dating program.
This is 非诚勿扰.
Yeah. And I'm the only girl from the west coast of America. Sorry, my Chinese is not very good. When I'm standing here, I want to find a boy who's got a sense of humor. And my name is Andrew from Philadelphia, 27 years old. 27 years old from New York. Thank you.
Oh dear. Oh dear. You're always going to get some of that. You know, I was just in the studio of this show on Sunday.
You went for one?
Really?
No, dating or what?
No, I'm a married man, but I was in the studio next door filming another show.
Okay.
And then there was 非诚勿扰, and
right.
It's the most popular show in China, for those who don't know.
Exactly, and this is, I would say, one of the most famous dating programs on TV these days in China, and actually recently, that was their new plan. And they've designed these, special programs only, say, for America, for Australia, for the UK. So these girls and boys are all from those different countries. So it's basically, if all of these candidates are from the same country, so there is a higher probability that there will be successes.
Yes.
So what do you think of this? And it seems before the show you said you can't really understand it, why they bother to come back all the way back to China.
You know, I consider myself an international man of leisure, and wherever I go in the world, I like to try and fit in, and I've travelled to many countries, and I think if someone said to me, "You're English, you should go back to England and find a good English lady to get married," I would say...
It's not that they were told by someone, it's their own,
they just do
their own decision, yeah?
Okay, even I can't see how I could make that decision myself. I believe in a lot more than just having to be from the same culture or being of the same colour. That's the reason that one should have to matchmake. I just think it's a bit silly, personally, myself. I think you need to believe in more than just the colour of your skin and your ethnicity or whatever it might be, that you have to find a matching partner. Of course, people always talk about culture, and it's very difficult to marry someone from other cultures, but if you always believe in that, then the future of the world is just purely everybody segmented into their own cultures and marrying within those cultures. And I think that's rubbish. I believe in a multicultural future of the world, myself.
Alice?
Well, I think this kind of show is actually quite fun for everybody.
To watch?
To watch
or
and
to be in
participate.
Okay.
All these people came to this show voluntarily, right?
Yeah.
And having lived abroad for a few years and coming back, I have so many friends who are looking for partners back in China, and I'm in my 20s. So basically all my friends are right now at the age to be pursuing or soon to be pursuing, to be pursued into a marriage. And many of them have tried it abroad. They all like me. They went to the UK, to the US when they were 15, 16, 18 maximum. They lived there. They dated Chinese boys and girls, Americans, English. Didn't work out.
Why it didn't work out?
And that's why they come back.
Why didn't work out then?
It didn't work out because they were too independently minded? I mean, it just...
There are many reasons. Actually, before this show, I put quite a lot of thought into it, like why it didn't work out. And first of all, most of them are too... Well, let's say they're not open enough to accept what you would accept. Like someone with different skin color from a completely different culture. That's the first step. So they probably close off half of the path for themselves. Then they try it. They try it, maybe it worked for a while, but soon enough, university finishes. relationships break
They
up.
have to go different directions.
Even
for
if they're
future
from the
careers.
same country, from the same city, still break. And then they look for someone else at work. At work, you see everyone's colleague. It's a bit weird. I mean, you wouldn't want to commit to something if it's going to harm your career, especially when you're so young. You take it safe. But outside work, who else is there? Everyone has some kind of social network. But there is not enough. It's just not enough. And especially for the young people who work so hard, there is no social life.
So
they put all their hope back at home in China.
But once again, and even if they are back in China, they have only maximum, say, 2 weeks to
Yeah.
get to know, to
Yeah.
try to get to know the one they've just met on that program.
No.
It still could be very difficult. Anyway, but still, a program or the arrangement like that is extremely popular with young Chinese boys and girls living and working in other countries. I just mentioned the 3 countries, in Australia and America and in the UK. They had that special programs done. And the first time they went to America for promotion, they've successfully attracted over 3,000 Chinese boys and girls to get registered. And in the UK, the first week, over 500.
This is Fei Cheng Wu Rao.
Fei Cheng Wu Rao.
You are the one.
You are the one.
one.
Actually, one thing that happened quite recently was an American-born Chinese man went on the show and found a partner who was a Chinese girl.
Okay.
Now, with Fei Cheng Wu Rao, you've got these girls who are on the show, and they stay on the show unless they choose
Yes,
a man.
that's right.
So they become quite famous, some of these girls.
Yeah.
So it's more like a celebrity beauty program.
And you know what?
Yes.
Having met these girls last Sunday that I did, I was very disappointed with how they look off camera. I have to say, they're not quite the beauties.
Hey, they might be watching this show, Dominic.
I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't claim to be a beauty myself, so I'm not. But what happened was he won over a girl who was quite popular from the show, who's been on for quite some time, and he received so much sort of hate mail, online, or all these discussions and BBSs, and there were a lot of it was towards her. They were saying, you just took him because you wanted to get a green card, and there was this massive discussion online about, she only went with him because he was American, not because, or why she should have because he was good looking or for his
So
personality or whatever.
she's the one who's based in China, not the one
That's
from
right.
that country.
An American
those
guy
countries.
went on the show, and
Right.
then and it's almost like there's judges. They're all judges. They're these girls.
But what is surprising to me is, and many of these candidates who did come to these programs are graduates from either Harvard, Yale, or MIT,
Or top
and all these.
university.
Supposedly, they should be very successful. The ones who have a bright future. It seems. I mean, if we put all these people in the Chinese context, when we say Chinese, I mean domestic Chinese context, then these would be the ones who are very much sought after by, the other young boys and girls. And we would say, well, their conditions are so supreme.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't really worry about, the other half in their life. But these are exactly the ones who are worried about that one, that issue.
Yeah,
Well, why is that?
I think it's because they have been in this elite group pretty much their whole life, right? From when they were in China, top of the class, top to enter particular university and good at jobs, and the social networks becomes narrower and narrower. Most of my friends work in banks or consultancy firms or accounting. Trust me, it's a very small network over there. It really is. And all the people in China who have a university degree so far added together, this is a piece of statistics I heard last week, is only 80 million Chinese altogether.
80 million.
80 million
These are
in the whole country?
In the whole country who hold a university degree, including my parents, from all the
Chinese
generations,
universities?
from Chinese universities.
Who are single or just generally?
Yeah, generally, and that's 80 million people. It sounds like a lot, but then you think about how many of them are now in their 20s or 30s. Among these people, how many are not married? Among these who have not been abroad?
That's interesting.
Among these who want to be married to someone who has not been to abroad? Then you get down to what, maybe
1%.
something like that. It's actually a very elite and very small group. That's why they are so difficult.
Well, there's many issues here, but the problem is also you graduate from university in China, you join a Chinese company or a Chinese multinational company, you work work and you work.
Yes,
There really is, like your social scene, like you were saying, it just narrows down to the people who are sat in the cubicle or the prison next to you in your corporate slave office, or the people that you meet online.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very depressing.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's hard to find a date.
Right. We'll give you some reasons why it's becoming such a huge challenge for all these young Chinese in living and working in other countries. But before that, let's take a short break. You're watching Crossover, and this is not a dating program, but we are talking about dating for overseas Chinese. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Crossover. Let's continue our dating discussion. And basically it's all triggered by the new phenomenon that lots of Chinese, overseas Chinese now are coming back to China to try to find their girlfriends and boyfriends. And we're trying to analyze the possible reasons why this is happening, because I mean, to our understanding, or say to the understanding of lots of people, you know, it shouldn't be a problem for all these young, successful elites. I mean, it seems, you know, they're successful, they've got all these credentials from all these famous universities, and at the same time, it seems they all have bright futures. But again, they still worry about their, you know, Miss Rights and Mr. Rights. And one of the reasons they gave out is they're too busy. And as you said earlier before the break, and you know, basically, you know, the ones they may have contact with are limited to a small circle, and it might be especially true for overseas Chinese, because once again, we would say that we're not saying the group of Chinese who were born in other countries, but we are basically talking about the group of Chinese who were born here, who got some education, primary education in China, but who went abroad to further studies.
Oh, I see.
And who, you know, lived there. These are the ones who could find their life challenging, because they have to, you know, input more time and efforts to try to develop a career. And that's why they say they will have to spend more time in their career and their job, and that means less time to go out with anyone.
You know, it seems to me that there's this huge elephant sat in the room, where there's something very wrong with society, which is you spend your life working to make money and more money, and money you never quite have enough as far as you're concerned, and you push the most important thing to the side, which is your love and your you know, your passions and things like this that make your life beautiful. So you work your ass off, and then you get a 2-week break to go find a wife. Now the chances of you finding a wife in 2 weeks that you're actually going to like and enjoy the rest of your life with are incredibly slim, right? I mean, you need to spend time with someone to get to know them, and take time off and grow to love each other and know each other out of the workplace.
Just want to clarify it. And in this program, it's a dating program, but it's not a guarantee that you have to get married. I mean, it's basically a starting point that you know, get to see it go out.
With this program, yes, but we're talking about Chinese people coming back to find their brides in a very short period of time. And they're convinced that because someone is also Chinese, that it's going to work out, and they stand a better chance. Well, you know, love doesn't really work like that.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't. You need to know someone, spend time with them, and get to know them before you're really going to, you know, truly understand each other and fall in love. You can't just make it happen. You can't force it to happen just like that.
So one of the reasons, one of the aspects we need to include is why they're coming back. It's basically why they're not successful in their dating experience back in their living countries. The other one is, as you mentioned earlier, the cultural difference, and there is one specific aspect to that one. It's more like they couldn't communicate with each other. Say, if you're among a group of friends of your own or of her own or his own, then if a joke is being told, and basically if you do not understand that culturally, then you will not get the joke. And that's only a tiny part of it, and that means if the daily communication is a problem, then I guess this is not going to work out.
I don't agree myself. I think that if you can't communicate these things, for me, I find a woman even more interesting if she is culturally different to me and has different, you know, not values, but different ideas and ways of looking at life. I find that fascinating. I mean, there's nothing more boring than being with somebody who's exactly like you. It's nice to find someone who's quite the opposite, actually, and then finds things
complementary, or
exactly.
Okay.
It's a balance, right? I mean, my wife is Canadian. She's completely different to me. I'm the most disorganized, you know, a spontaneous person that I know. My wife is incredibly organised and structured. And although Canada and England are quite culturally similar, you know, we've managed to work it out. So, you know, and we met in Beijing, you know, so we're a pretty international family. You know, and so I believe in that. I believe in that kind of destiny and the reasons for being
Do you
together.
see it as one of the biggest obstacles, I mean, hindering, say, your friends from finding the right ones?
Let me talk about my own experience and then my observation. I mean, my experience, I'm a bit like you. I'm very open to people who are very different from me. But it's not like everybody's cup of tea.
No, you're right.
Right? And
She's so English.
really?
English husband.
Should I take that as a compliment?
Everyone's cup of tea. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, there's something I do agree with you, Dominic, is that you wouldn't just define people by categories. Like, I think I'm Chinese, so I'm going to go out with a Chinese guy. That doesn't mean anything. Like, you can categorize people by cities. Beijing and Shanghai is different age, different background, all that. It's about making an effort to the person you are interested in or the person you're dating. And many of my friends have had difficulty getting the joke when together with other people from a different culture. And those who can adapt would adapt to it. And each group would have fun on their own. And those who don't adapt to it will gradually leave the group. It's just a trend. It just so
I
happens.
mean, it doesn't really matter. That's not an issue of principle. I mean, if you don't get the joke this time, okay, ask. And then you might be able to get it next time. I mean, basically, you have a little respect of the difference of different culture. Then you just get it. That's something we can share for people from different cultures and different backgrounds.
And you become more understanding, you know,
Yes.
when you're married to someone from a different culture. You just suddenly become more understanding of everybody from different cultures and different backgrounds. It's just that you realise that, you know, we are essentially, we're all human, but we're, you know, very different. And if we adapt, you know, then we can make a difference, you know.
Deep at the bottom, I guess, we are not that different, even we're from different places. But anyway, I mean, this is more like the choice, a personal choice, and whether you would like to, you know, go out to try to put in some time and efforts to try to adapt to a different culture, different way of living. That's a personal issue, and some would find it easy, some would find it, you know, comfortable to do that, but some might, you know, find it difficult for them to adapt to a different culture.
Time-consuming.
I mean, it's all understandable. It's their own choice of different lifestyles.
Another obstacle these young Chinese people who lived abroad face is family pressure, which is a huge thing.
In what regard?
Parents' expectations. Chinese parents now in their 50s, 60s grew up in a very different time from their children, and their expectation may not necessarily match their children's experience.
You mean the expectation of their future husbands, future wives?
That's
or what?
right. That's right. The expectation of the Mr. or Mrs. Right they are going to find may not be the right person that their parents would easily accept. I think it's more of an issue for guys than girls.
Yeah, I would say these days Chinese parents are getting more open-minded. So we are seeing more cases where you know, a Chinese parent would accept the fact that their children is going out with a foreigner, even getting married, and it's not an issue anymore.
I think actually my experience of living in China is that Chinese parents generally are pretty open to their daughters, in my case, you talked there was, you know, marrying foreigners. It's not a massive issue.
That's
in
what
fact,
I mean.
you know, going back to the 90s when I say foreigners were perceived as great, you know, wealthy and, you know, from the West and what have you, it was, you know, it was a great brand, which is now not quite the same. And you know, I have dated many Chinese women, not many, but quite a few. All right, a few thousand. No, and in each case, I've met a few parents, and I was always very, very welcomed.
There are some other considerations we'll talk about. You're watching Crossover. We'll take a break first. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Crossover. And before the break, we mentioned this element of parents, the parents' influence in the relationship. Before the break, you said basically parents might have different expectations out of the other half of their children in the future. But there is another one. I mean, to accept the fact that your daughters or your son's other half, boyfriend, girlfriend, as a foreigner is one thing. But there is something else. And basically, it doesn't have to do with being a foreigner or what. It's more like the parents will have expectations what the future son-in-law or daughter-in-law should be like. They should be, successful in their careers. They should be taller than certain height, and they shouldn't be too, overweight, shouldn't be too skinny either. And they have their own criteria, and they say this is all for the good of you, daughter or son.
Yeah.
So that's something that's coming in the way. Not, not only the fact that they're accepting a son-in-law, possible son-in-law or daughter-in-law as a foreigner.
I think history has shown, at least where I grew up, that interfering parents, in relationship never really works. In fact, generally, where I come from, in England especially, if my mother told me that she didn't like one of my girlfriends, I would like that girl even more. You know what I mean? You just, for sure, right? It's like you're being told, not to do something, It's like smoking. It's like, don't do it, it's dangerous. You're like, oh.
But that's not part of the moral standard required of Chinese young people.
No, not really. Because
so you have a stronger family, and you're more respectful to your elders here.
Yeah.
Than
yes,
we are.
yes. When the parents say, "I'm doing this for your own benefit, for your own good," the children would feel they have to accept it. It's a responsibility to accept, not just a responsibility on the parents' side to offer. Chinese children, especially now, they're all single child. They feel they should be kind and respectful to their parents' wish. And this is a burden they put on their own shoulders too. Not just the parents are giving it to them, they take it on. I'm sure Chinese parents' expectations would be projected onto the other half too. They'd feel it. Like my husband would feel my parents' expectation of me. Even if it's not for him, he'd feel it for me.
So do you think that when your children grow up, you're going to be a similar mum? Do you think you're going to be a hands-on?
She's got an international marriage, so we don't know.
My parents are
I know, which is why it's interesting. I mean, will you change, do you think? Or
My parents are extremely open about who I date, who I marry, etc. But still, on daily basis, there would be certain expectations that would only come from my parents and never from my husband's parents. For example, like, this is like a Sunday night. We just have to get together and have a meal.
So family time.
Family time. And during the meal, it's not important what topic we discuss. It's not important whether we're all listening to the same person to speak. It's also not important whether everybody is enjoying themselves. It's only important that everybody is here together right now.
I love that. That's brilliant. That's such a British Chinese thing, because in England, we have Sunday lunches in England, and we have to get together, we have to put nice clothes on, we have to listen to certain conversations, everyone has to be enjoying themselves, otherwise everyone feels very uncomfortable. It's a very kind of awkward British situation. And you pointed out, it's great. Actually, it's the great thing about getting together with Chinese friends at Chinese New Year. People make a mess.
That's right.
People burp, people fart, people talk, people fall asleep. I can take the chair over there, go fall asleep, and nobody cares. Everyone just leaves me alone.
Exactly.
I love it. And I think I'm more Beijing now than I am English. Because when I go back to England, I get in so much trouble for not thanking people for giving me things at the table, and not doing this, and not joining in conversations, or just falling asleep at the table. I get brilliant.
Being together is different. Once again, that's another aspect of the differences, cultural differences. What about the other one? And your attitude towards marriage. I don't know whether this is true or not. And basically what they're saying is, for Chinese people, especially for the Chinese boys and girls living in other countries, they do understand that marriage is something that you have to work on, that you have to work very hard on to make it work. Well, maybe for, I don't know, for the ones from other countries or other cultures, it might be like, marriage is something, that exists when both of you feel happy together, being together with each other. If you don't have that feeling anymore, you don't have to work very hard to make it work. I guess that's some difference that exists.
Yeah, I think that's going back to what I was saying about sort of believing in some form of destiny and reasons for being together. No, I think in my case, I believe in both. I believe that there should be that certain passion and love and connection that makes you two together, but you have to work on it, for sure. I mean, if you don't work on it, it's very rare you get a couple who just like meet, get together, and it's just happy forever. There's always stages with ups and downs.
Compromises.
Yeah, and you have to compromise and make it work. It's a lot of work.
But it seems to be like, getting big issue for all these overseas Chinese because, it's not only they are personally coming back to programs like this to try to find the other half, but at the same time, their parents are also doing that for them. Remember before we talked about in these parks in the cities like Beijing and Shanghai, you will see these big corners.
Yes.
They're crazy. Those walls.
Like that
where
one.
Yeah, that's right.
And the parents going out to try to find the ones for their children.
That's insane.
Holding all these, personal information and the pictures of their children, and, to try to find a match up. Hey, this is the overseas corner.
Wow.
So they're trying to find the ones who do not live in China. Okay, they're talking to the potential matchup.
This is brilliant.
So this is a big issue not only for the young people, but also it's like a family issue.
I would feel such shame if I caught my mother in a park trying to sell me to a woman.
But sometimes
would
without
send her
the
home.
knowledge, maybe without the acknowledgement of their own children,
Yeah.
it's basically they're doing it on their behalf.
Yeah.
Well, actually, an interesting fact I read the other day was with the one-child policy, by 2020, there's going to be 30 million more men than women who won't be able to find a match.
Yeah.
So
But
it's just
in
gonna
the
make-
cities, it might be a different story because the current situation is like there are more girls in the city these days than the boys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so the boys are tending the farms, aren't
So
they?
there is the imbalance the general imbalance is more boys than girls, but it seems in the city the picture is more like more girls than boys.
Ah, okay, that's how it works out. But brilliant that the parents are so active in trying to find a match. It's very sweet, really. I mean,
So
they
once
just
again,
gotta-
this is also shows another aspect of how big the influence might be
Totally.
from the parents.
Yes. Yes, and I have seen these corners in Beijing as well.
You have? Yeah.
Yes, I have. It was in Ditan Park,
Oh, really?
where they always have the annual celebration following Chinese New Year, the Miaohui.
The Miaohui, yeah,
During
I was there
Miaohui,
this year
during
for the
Miaohui, there will be a whole setup of matchmaking in a corner of it.
Were
It's
there
not
lots of
really
people?
a corner; it's like big space
Okay.
for
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
And I went, and I felt quite bad actually, because I was obviously not a parent, and I went with a girlfriend of mine. And we didn't look like we were looking for husbands either. And we were just looking, like saying, oh, that girl. But I was so surprised by the age
Were you
of the
approached,
children.
actually?
No, I wasn't. I was just
the
looking.
parents, no?
Because I wasn't parent. It was a parents for parents thing.
But once again, they
Oh,
were
yeah,
they were
actually,
trying to...
yeah. There was one guy who came up to me and said, it was like the worst chat-up line ever. Is like, so you're here to look for someone.
Come here often.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one
That's
of those
right,
days.
my parents.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and I was surprised by the age of some of the girls whose parents have come here to advertise for them. They were like
20.
22 and just out of university. And I really didn't think that was necessary. And some of the parents were very open about it. They were very happy looking.